The night sky above Geneva blazed with lights that did not belong to any star. Millions of people stood in streets, on rooftops, and in parks, watching as the alien vessels descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling jewels. The ships were beautiful, crafted from materials that shimmered with colors humanity had no names for. They moved with impossible grace, defying everything humans understood about physics and flight. Secretary General Maria Santos stood on the landing platform, her heart pounding so hard she thought the aliens might hear it. Beside her, representatives from every nation on Earth waited in formal dress, trying to look calm. They had prepared for this moment ever since the message arrived 3 months ago. The Galactic Concordat had announced their arrival, promising peace and friendship. Now that promise was about to become real. The largest ship touched down without a sound. A ramp extended and the first alien stepped out. It looked like a being made of flowing water held in a vaguely humanoid shape. Behind it came others, a creature with 6 legs and crystalline skin, a floating orb that pulsed with inner light, and a tall being covered in what looked like living moss. There were more, each stranger than the last and each wearing what appeared to be a welcoming expression. The water being spoke, and a device on its chest translated the words into perfect English. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Velshara of the Galactic Concordat. We have traveled far to meet you. Your world has been watched with great interest, and we are pleased to finally make contact." Maria stepped forward, her prepared speech feeling inadequate. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We are honored by your presence. Humanity has dreamed of this day for generations." Velshara made a rippling motion that might have been a smile.
"How charming."
"Yes, we have seen your dreams, heard your radio signals reaching into space. You are young, curious, and full of potential. The Concordat welcomes Earth as a member species, though you will need much guidance. There is so much you do not yet know." The words were kind, but there was something in them that made Maria pause. Guidance. Protection. The Concordat representative spoke about humanity the way adults spoke about children who had just learned to walk. Over the following weeks, as diplomats from 47 alien species arrived on Earth, this pattern continued. They admired human art and music. They laughed at human jokes. They found human emotions fascinating and refreshing. But they also treated humanity like beloved pets who had just been allowed into the house. The technology they shared proved this point. The Concordat gave humanity basic faster-than-light travel, medical advances that eliminated most diseases, and clean energy systems. These gifts transformed Earth overnight. But when human scientists asked questions about the deeper principles behind the technology, the aliens patted them on the head, metaphorically speaking, and said such things were too advanced for humanity to understand yet. Perhaps in a few hundred years, they said with gentle condescension. Dr. James Way, one of Earth's leading physicists, sat in his laboratory staring at the FTL drive the aliens had installed in humanity's first starship. It worked perfectly, but it was a black box. Humans could operate it, but not comprehend it. "They've given us a car, but won't show us the engine," he muttered to his colleague. "We're supposed to be grateful and not ask questions." Despite the frustration felt by some, most of humanity embraced their new place in the galaxy. The Concordat offered Earth 3 frontier worlds for colonization. These planets were beautiful, with breathable atmospheres and abundant resources. Thousands of humans volunteered to become colonists, eager to build new homes among the stars. The alien species helped with the settlements, providing prefabricated structures and agricultural technology. Earth itself became a tourist destination. Aliens visited by the millions eager to experience human culture. Human restaurants opened on a dozen worlds, serving food that aliens found delightfully exotic. Human musicians performed in concert halls, built for species with entirely different hearing ranges. Human storytellers found eager audiences who loved tales of Earth's history, even if they found human conflicts quaint and primitive. Ambassador Chen Liu worked at the newly established Terran Embassy on Concordat Prime, the capital world of the galactic government. She spent her days in meetings with alien officials who praised humanity's adaptability and creativity. They spoke of how refreshing it was to have such an energetic young species join their ancient civilization. They promised to protect Earth from any dangers in the galaxy, assuring her that the Concordat had maintained peace for 10,000 years. "You need not worry about military matters," an elder species representative told her during one meeting. "The Concordat handles all security. Humanity should focus on art, culture, and learning. Leave the difficult matters of galactic governance to those with more experience. Chen smiled and nodded, playing the role of the grateful junior partner. But inside she felt a growing unease. Humanity was being positioned not as equals, but as the galaxy's entertaining newcomers. They were loved, yes, but not respected. The Concordat saw humans as children who needed protection and guidance, not as partners who might have something valuable to contribute beyond restaurants and music. Back on Earth, in secure facilities buried deep underground, other humans worked on projects the Concordat knew nothing about. Admiral Jackson Reeves stood in a command center watching displays that showed information the aliens had never shared. His team had been preparing for this day long before the Concordat arrived. They had seen the aliens coming, had tracked their approach for 15 years before official first contact. In those 15 years, humanity had built something the galaxy would never expect. They had built it in secret in darkness away from alien eyes. They had built it hoping they would never need to reveal it. But they had built it nonetheless, because humanity understood something the peaceful Concordat had forgotten over their 10,000 years of peace. The galaxy was not always kind to those who could not defend themselves. 5 years passed since first contact, and humanity had woven itself into the fabric of galactic society. On the Concordat world of Polara, Sarah Chen served the best noodles this side of the galaxy. Her restaurant was always full of alien customers who came for the taste of Earth. They praised her cooking and asked endless questions about human customs. Sarah loved her life among the stars, never imagining that her success was part of a carefully orchestrated plan. On Earth, young people grew up learning alien languages in school alongside mathematics and history. Children played with alien friends through holographic communication. To the generation born after first contact, the Concordat was simply normal. They had no memory of a time when humanity stood alone. They trusted the aliens completely and saw them as protective elder siblings who wanted only the best for Earth. But in the shadows, far from alien eyes, a different humanity existed. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in facilities that did not appear on any map, Admiral Keiko Chen reviewed status reports from Project Nightfall. The name was deliberately ominous, chosen to remind everyone involved of what they were building. Around her, thousands of personnel worked in absolute secrecy, maintaining humanity's greatest deception. The Concordat surveillance satellites passed overhead again today, reported Commander Hayes. Our stealth fields held perfectly. They detected nothing. Keiko nodded, studying a holographic display that showed the true extent of humanity's military capability. What she saw would have terrified the peaceful species of the Concordat. Hundreds of warships floated in the darkness between stars, invisible to every scanner the galaxy possessed. These were not exploration vessels or cargo haulers. These were instruments of war, built with a singular purpose. The story of how humanity acquired this technology was known to fewer than 100 people. When Earth's deep space telescopes first detected the Concordat fleet approaching 15 years before official contact, world leaders faced an impossible choice. Should they reveal this knowledge or pretend to be surprised? After intense debate, they chose deception. Dr. Rahman's team had been the first to break down the alien signals they intercepted. Their technology is advanced, but it follows logical principles, she had explained to the emergency committee. They're not using magic. They're using physics we haven't discovered yet. But if we can intercept their communications for long enough, we can learn. And learn they did. For 15 years, humanity listened to every transmission between Concordat ships. They analyzed every signal, every data packet, every casual conversation between alien crews. Piece by piece, they reverse-engineered technology that should have been centuries beyond their reach. They did it in secret, building facilities on the far side of the moon, in the asteroid belt, and deep beneath Mars. The Concordat believed they were approaching a primitive species just beginning to reach for the stars. They never imagined that humanity had already mapped their approach vectors, decoded their languages, and understood their technology before the first official greeting was spoken. By the time Ambassador Velshara stepped onto Earth, humanity had already built their first stealth warship. Project Nightfall grew in the shadows while humanity smiled and played the role of eager students on the galactic stage. Every piece of technology the Concordat shared openly was studied and improved in secret facilities. Human engineers took the basic FTL drive and pushed it further, developing versions that were faster and impossible to track. Weapons that the peaceful Concordat had not built in millennia were designed, tested, and manufactured by the thousands. Lieutenant Marcus Webb sat in the cockpit of a ship the Concordat would never see. The stealth corvette around him was a masterpiece of human engineering, coated in materials that bent light and absorbed sensor waves. It carried weapons designed to fight opponents humanity had only imagined. "It feels wrong sometimes," he said to his co-pilot. "We're out here building weapons while our people think we're all friends with the galaxy." His co-pilot, Yuki Tanaka, checked their position in the Oort cloud far beyond Concordat sensors. "Would you rather humanity be helpless? The Concordat is nice now, but history teaches that power dynamics change. Better to have this fleet and never need it than need it and not have it." The moral weight of the deception pressed heavily on those who knew the truth. President Williams often stood in the Situation Room staring at the split-screen displays. On one side, happy humans living peacefully among aliens. On the other side, massive weapons platforms that could sterilize planets. "Are we the bad guys?" he asked his security advisor one night. "We're the prepared guys," General Morrison replied. "The Concordat has been at peace for 10,000 years. They've forgotten that the universe isn't always kind. We haven't forgotten because we lived it. 2 world wars, countless conflicts. We know what happens when good people can't defend themselves. The technology humanity developed went far beyond what the Concordat shared. Quantum stealth systems made ships completely invisible. Relativistic kinetic weapons could strike targets from light years away. AI systems managed combat operations at speeds biological beings could never match. Exotic physics research unlocked abilities that seemed like magic, like folding space to move instantly, or generating localized gravity wells that could crush enemy vessels. Every human colony ship that launched toward the frontier worlds carried a hidden purpose. Beneath their civilian cargo holds, military equipment waited in shielded compartments. The colonists knew nothing about this, but once they arrived at their new homes, automated systems would deploy defensive platforms in orbit. The 3 frontier worlds were not just colonies. They were forward military bases disguised as peaceful settlements. On the Concordat Council, human representatives continued to play their assigned role. They brought proposals for cultural exchange programs and trade agreements. They smiled when elder species lectured them about galactic politics. They asked naive questions about topics they had already researched thoroughly. All the while, they gathered intelligence about Concordat military capabilities, political structures, and potential threats. "The deception eats at me," Ambassador Chen confided to her handler during an encrypted call. "These aliens genuinely like us. They're good people who want to help, and we're lying to their faces. We're protecting them and us," her handler replied. "The Concordat is peaceful because no one has threatened them seriously in millennia. That peace made them soft. When real danger comes, and it always does eventually, they'll need someone who remembers how to fight. That's us." The youth of Earth remained blissfully unaware. They studied at Concordat universities, made alien friends, and dreamed of a future among the stars. They believed in the eternal peace that their alien friends promised. Only a small group of older humans, those who remembered Earth before first contact, understood the darker truth. Peace was not eternal. It was a temporary condition maintained by strength, and humanity was building strength in the shadows while smiling in the light. In the cold darkness between stars, the Shadow Fleet waited. The first warning came from the edge of Concordat space, from a monitoring station orbiting a red dwarf star. The station's crew were scientists from the peaceful Trill species, recording stellar phenomena for research. They noticed strange readings approaching from intergalactic space and sent a routine inquiry message. The message was never answered. 3 days later, when a supply ship arrived, they found only debris and silence. The Concordat Council treated it as an accident at first, perhaps a reactor malfunction. Such things were rare but not impossible. They dispatched investigation teams and continued with their normal business. 2 weeks later, 6 more stations went silent. Then a small colony on the rim world of Talvis stopped responding to hails. When scout ships arrived to investigate, they found a planet stripped of all life, its cities reduced to organic sludge, and massive structures growing across its surface. Ambassador Velshara addressed an emergency session of the Concordat Council with visible distress. The water beings' usually calm form rippled with agitation. We face an invasion force unlike anything in our recorded history. They call themselves the Dravine, or so our linguists have determined from intercepted signals. They appear to be a hive-mind species that consumes biological matter and converts worlds into breeding nests. The holographic display showed images that shocked the peaceful species of the galaxy. The Dravine ships were organic horrors, massive creatures bred for war and void travel. They moved in swarms of thousands, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. Their weapons were biological, firing projectiles that ate through shields and hull plating like acid. Every world they conquered became another resource to fuel their expansion. The Concordat mobilized its defense forces, such as they were. After 10,000 years of peace, the military was more ceremonial than functional. Their ships were designed for patrol duties and showing the flag, not for combat against a determined enemy. The weapons they carried were meant to disable rather than destroy. Their tactics were built around negotiation and de-escalation, concepts that meant nothing to a hive mind bent on consumption. Captain Thoris of the Concordat Defense Fleet led 300 ships to defend the world of Kelvara, home to 6 billion souls. His fleet represented the largest military force the Concordat had assembled in 5,000 years. They waited in orbit as thousands of Dravine bioships emerged from FTL, blotting out the stars with their numbers. The battle lasted 4 hours. 200 Concordat ships were destroyed, their shields useless against the acid-spitting weapons of the Dravine. The remaining 100 ships retreated, leaving Kelvara to its fate. Within a week, Kelvara's population was gone, consumed by the Dravine swarm. The planet's surface transformed into a nightmare landscape of organic towers and breeding pools. The Dravine fleet, now reinforced with new ships grown from Kelvara's biomass, moved deeper into Concordat space. Panic spread across the galaxy. Species that had known only peace for millennia suddenly faced extinction. The Concordat Council met in continuous emergency session, but they had no answers. Their military doctrine was obsolete, their weapons inadequate, and their warriors had forgotten how to fight a real war. Proposal after proposal was drafted and rejected. Each one assumed the Dravine could be reasoned with or deterred. None of the peaceful species could accept that sometimes violence was the only answer to violence. On Earth, the news hit like a physical blow. Humans watched broadcasts showing alien friends dying by the billions. The 3 human frontier worlds lay directly in the path of the Dravine advance. Sarah Chen, who ran her restaurant on Polara, received evacuation orders along with millions of other off-world humans. The Concordat military, stretched beyond its limits, could not guarantee the safety of any world in the outer sectors. All human colonies are ordered to evacuate immediately, the announcement stated. Transport ships are being dispatched. Earth's military capabilities are limited, and we cannot defend against this threat. Return home where the Concordat's inner defenses can protect you. But the colonists of New Terra, humanity's largest frontier world, received a different message through encrypted channels. Governor Patricia Martinez stood before her confused citizens and told them a truth that changed everything. "We are not evacuating. Remain calm and stay in your homes. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but it is the truth. Humanity has prepared for this day." Across the galaxy, other humans in positions of power began revealing secrets they had kept for years. In government chambers, military facilities, and diplomatic posts, the careful deception started to unravel. The Concordat Council summoned Earth's representatives and demanded to know why human colonists were refusing evacuation orders. Ambassador Chen sat before the assembled alien leaders and chose her words carefully. "The Terran government has capabilities we have not previously disclosed. We ask that you trust us. Our colonies will not fall to the Dravine." Belshara's form darkened with confusion and hurt. "What capabilities? Humanity has no military force capable of facing this threat. We have seen your ships. They are explorers and cargo haulers, not warships. You must evacuate your people before it is too late." "With respect, Ambassador, you have not seen all of our ships," Chen replied quietly. "We hoped we would never need to reveal them. That hope has ended." The Concordat Council erupted in questions and accusations. How could humanity have hidden military capabilities? Why would they deceive their friends? What technology could Earth possibly possess that the ancient species of the galaxy did not? The questions came from a place of hurt feelings and wounded trust, but also from desperate hope. If humanity had some hidden strength, perhaps not all was lost. On Mars, in the command center of Project Nightfall, Admiral Keiko Chen gave the order that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Activate all Shadow Fleet units. Decloak and proceed to defensive positions around human colonies. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show the galaxy what we built in the darkness. Across dozens of star systems, reality itself seemed to tear apart as massive warships materialized from nowhere. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. Now they dropped their stealth fields and revealed themselves in all their terrible glory. Dreadnoughts 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had no equivalent in concorded arsenals. Carrier vessels launching swarms of autonomous combat drones, sleek destroyers that could fold space and appear anywhere on the battlefield in seconds. The human colonists on New Terra stood in the streets, staring up at the sky where hundreds of human warships now orbited their world. These were not the friendly exploration vessels they knew. These were instruments of war, built by a humanity that had never forgotten how to fight. Children asked their parents what was happening. The parents had no answers, staring in shock at the revelation that their species had been hiding this capability the entire time. The Dravine swarm approached New Terra, expecting easy prey. They had consumed dozens of worlds already, and this one would be no different. But as they entered the star system, they encountered something they had not faced before. Humanity, armed and ready, waiting in the darkness to show the galaxy what monsters looked like when they protected their own. The Battle of Kepler 442 would be studied by military historians for centuries, though not for the reasons anyone expected. The Concordat had designated the world as a lost cause and ordered a full evacuation. Home to 12 billion souls from 7 different species, Kepler 442 was a jewel of galactic civilization, but it lay directly in the path of the largest Dravine swarm yet encountered, and the Concordat simply had no way to defend it. Captain Thoris and the remnants of his defense fleet held position in orbit, determined to buy time for the civilian transports fleeing the planet. His 36 remaining ships were battered from previous engagements, their shields failing and weapons running low on ammunition. They faced a Dravine force of over 5,000 bioships, a massive living armada that had consumed 3 worlds already. All civilian vessels have cleared the gravity well, reported his tactical officer, a young Peleran whose voice shook with fear. Captain, we should retreat. We cannot stop this force. Thoris stared at the tactical display, watching the Dravine swarm approach like a plague. His career had been spent on ceremonial duties and humanitarian missions. He had never fired his weapons in anger, never seen a real battle until the Dravine came. In 3 weeks he had watched the military traditions of 10,000 years prove utterly useless against an enemy that could not be reasoned with. No, he said quietly, we will hold position. If this is where we die, then we die buying our people time to escape. All ships prepare for final stand. His fleet formed a defensive line, their aging weapons charging for a last desperate volley. The Dravine bioships surged forward, eager to consume the metal and flesh before them. Acid projectiles launched by the thousands, crossing the dark space between the fleets. Thoris watched them come and prepared for the end. Then reality fractured. The space between his fleet and the Dravine swarm tore open like fabric being ripped apart. Thoris's sensors screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. His view screen went white with interference, then cleared to show something that made his mind struggle to comprehend what he was seeing. Ships emerged from the tiers in space. Massive vessels, larger than anything in the Concordat fleet, appeared from nowhere. They were angular and brutal in design, covered in armor plating and weapon systems that spoke of a singular purpose. These ships were not built to explore or trade. They were built to kill. Unknown vessels are hailing us, his communications officer stammered. Captain, they're human. The face that appeared on Thoris's screen was unfamiliar but unmistakably human. Admiral Keiko Chen wore a black uniform with insignia he had never seen before. Her expression was calm but carried a hardness that none of the friendly humans he knew possessed. Concordat vessels, this is Admiral Chen of the Terran Shadow Fleet. Move to the following coordinates and stay out of our firing lanes. We will handle the Dravine. Thoris wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Where had these ships come from? How did humanity possess such technology? Why had they hidden it? But the Dravine were seconds away from firing range, and questions could wait. Concordat fleet, comply with human instructions. Move to designated coordinates. His ships scattered to the flanks as over 300 human warships materialized fully into normal space. The Shadow Fleet formed a wall between the planet and the Dravine swarm, their weapons charging with power signatures that made Thoris's sensors think they were malfunctioning. Nothing should generate that much energy. The Dravine swarm did not hesitate or fear. The hive mind knew only hunger and expansion. They surged forward, firing their acid weapons at the human ships. The projectiles splashed harmlessly against shields that held firm. The Dravine, accustomed to easy victories, pressed their attack with thousands of ships. Admiral Chen's voice carried across the command channel, calm and cold. All vessels weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten human worlds. The Shadow Fleet opened fire and the universe became light and thunder. Railguns fired projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Each round hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon, punching through Dravine bioships and continuing through 3 or 4 more behind them. The kinetic weapons turned the organic vessels into clouds of frozen vapor. Hundreds of Dravine died in the first volley, simply ceasing to exist as relativistic rounds vaporized them. Missile batteries released swarms of autonomous munitions. Each missile was smaller than a human, but carried an AI system more advanced than anything the Concordat had seen. They wove through the Dravine formation with impossible precision, seeking out the larger bioforms and detonating with fusion fire. Dozens of missiles would coordinate their attacks, hitting a single large Dravine ship from multiple angles simultaneously, ensuring nothing survived. The human carrier vessels disgorged thousands of combat drones. Unlike the simple automated systems the Concordat used, these drones moved with predatory intelligence. They hunted in packs, coordinating through quantum communication links. They identified Dravine command organisms and targeted them specifically, beheading the local hive mind nodes and throwing sections of the swarm into disarray. Thoris watched his sensors in stunned disbelief. The battle was not a struggle. It was an execution. The Dravine swarm that had destroyed his fleet and consumed 3 worlds was being systematically annihilated. Human weapons cut through their numbers like a harvester through wheat. The biological ships tried to adapt, tried to swarm individual human vessels, but the Shadow Fleet's tactics were merciless. A destroyer folded space, appearing directly behind a cluster of Dravine ships and firing at point-blank range before folding away again. A dreadnought released a gravity mine that created a localized singularity, pulling in hundreds of bioships and crushing them into a point of infinite density. Stealth corvettes appeared from nowhere, fired devastating close-range plasma bursts and vanished before the Dravine could respond. "They're not just fighting," his tactical officer whispered. "They're hunting." The observation was correct and terrifying. The human fleet moved with practiced coordination that spoke of extensive training. These warriors had drilled for this battle, prepared for this moment. While humanity smiled and served noodles in galactic restaurants, in the shadows they had been building an army and teaching it how to wage war. The Dravine tried to retreat, their hive mind recognizing a superior predator, but the Shadow Fleet had positioned itself to cut off escape routes. Human ships appeared at every FTL exit point, their weapons already firing as Dravine vessels tried to flee. Admiral Chen had studied the enemy's tactics through the intelligence the Concordat provided, and she had prepared the perfect killing ground. The battle lasted 4 hours, the same length as the battle where Thoris had lost most of his fleet. But the outcome was inverted. When the firing stopped, over 5,000 Dravine bioships were gone, reduced to debris and frozen organic matter. The Shadow Fleet had lost 11 drones and 1 corvette had taken moderate damage. No human lives were lost. Kepler 442 was saved. 12 billion people were alive because humanity had revealed its hidden strength. And across the galaxy, every species in the Concordat realized that their friendly human neighbors were not what they seemed. Thoris stared at his view screen where Admiral Chen's face waited. The human woman looked tired but satisfied. "Captain Thoris, you and your crew fought bravely with what you had. Return to Concordat Command and tell them the Dravine advance will proceed no further. Humanity is taking over active combat operations." "Admiral," Thoris found his voice. "Where did you get these ships? This technology? How long have you been hiding this?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "Since before we met you, Captain. We saw you coming and we prepared. We hoped we would never need to show you this side of humanity. But hope is not a strategy, and the galaxy needed someone who remembered how to fight. We'll speak more later. For now, we have more Dravine swarms to eliminate. The transmission ended, and Thoris sat in his command chair trying to process what had happened. Humanity, the species the Concordat had welcomed as charming primitives, had just demonstrated military capability that eclipsed everything the galaxy possessed. And they had hidden it perfectly for 5 years, smiling and making friends while building an arsenal in the darkness. The war against the Dravine lasted 47 days after humanity revealed its shadow fleet. What the Concordat had failed to stop in months of desperate fighting, humanity ended in less than 7 weeks. The shadow fleet hunted down every Dravine swarm with methodical precision, using tactics and weapons that shocked the peaceful species of the galaxy. Worlds that had fallen were reclaimed, though what the Dravine had done to them would take decades to heal. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the final Dravine hive world burn. The species had been extragalactic invaders with no home in this galaxy, but they had established a breeding nest on a barren world in deep space. The Shadow Fleet had found it through careful intelligence work and destroyed it utterly. Relativistic missiles traveling at 90% of light speed had cracked the planet's crust, ensuring nothing could survive. "It's done," she said quietly. "Recall all fleets to human space. We need to have some difficult conversations." On Earth, the mood was complex and confused. Citizens had watched broadcasts of human warships destroying alien enemies with terrifying efficiency. Young people who had grown up believing humanity was a junior partner in galactic civilization now learned their government had been deceiving everyone, including them. Protests erupted in major cities with demonstrators demanding to know why such weapons had been built and hidden. "We trusted you," a young activist shouted at a press conference. "We thought we were part of a peaceful galaxy, and you were building weapons of mass destruction behind our backs." President Williams faced the cameras and the anger with visible weariness. "We built those weapons to protect you, to protect all of us. The Concordat is wonderful, but they had forgotten that peace requires strength to maintain it. We saw a galaxy that had been safe for so long they could not defend themselves. We chose to be their shield, even if it meant carrying secrets." The Concordat Council summoned Earth's representatives to Concordat Prime for an official inquiry. The massive chamber was filled with delegates from all member species, and the atmosphere was tense. Ambassador Chen walked to the center platform, knowing that humanity's place in galactic society hung in the balance. Some species looked at her with gratitude, others with fear, many with a sense of betrayal. Belshara spoke first, the water being's voice carrying hurt alongside confusion. "Humanity came to us as friends. We welcomed you, shared our technology, offered you worlds to settle, and all that time you were hiding warships and weapons. You deceived us. How can we trust you now?" Chen took a deep breath and chose honesty. "You are right that we deceived you. From the moment we detected your approach, we have been preparing for the possibility that the galaxy was not as safe as you believed. We studied your history and saw a pattern. 10,000 years of peace maintained because nothing had challenged you. But peace built on the absence of threats is fragile. Real peace requires the capability to defend it." A delegate from the Trill species, whose homeworld had been saved by the Shadow Fleet, spoke up. "You treated us like children who needed protection. You decided for all of us that you would be the hidden guardians. That is arrogant." "Yes, it is," Chen agreed, surprising the chamber. "It was arrogant. It was also necessary. If we had revealed our military capabilities from the start, would you have welcomed us the same way? Or would you have feared us and pushed us away? We wanted to be your friends first, your protectors only if needed. But you used our own technology against us," another delegate argued. "You intercepted our signals and reverse-engineered advances that we would have shared eventually. You stole from us." "We learned from you," Chen corrected gently. "The principles were there in your transmissions. We simply worked very hard to understand them. And yes, we built weapons that you chose not to build. Because we come from a world that learned through blood and fire that good intentions alone do not stop determined enemies." The Dravine proved that. The chamber fell silent. The truth of that statement could not be denied. Without humanity's intervention, billions more would have died. Entire species might have been consumed. The Concordat's peaceful nature, so admirable in its idealism, had left them defenseless against true predators. Elder Morath, the oldest member of the council from a species that had seen the galaxy's ancient wars, spoke in a voice like grinding stones. "The young one speaks truth we have forgotten. Our ancestors knew that peace is maintained by strength. We became so comfortable in our safety that we forgot the cost of it. Perhaps humanity, who still remembers how to fight, can teach us what we unlearned. Over the following weeks, the debate continued across the galaxy. Philosophers argued about the ethics of hidden military forces. Politicians discussed whether humanity should be punished or rewarded for their deception. Citizens of 1,000 worlds grappled with the revelation that their friendly human neighbors were also apex predators who had been hiding their true nature. In the end, pragmatism won over idealism. The Concordat Council created a new position specifically for humanity: Wardens of the Concordat. Earth would maintain its shadow fleet, but under joint oversight with other species. Human military advisors would help train Concordat defense forces in actual combat tactics. The agreement was imperfect and satisfied no one completely, but it acknowledged reality. Sarah Chen, who ran her restaurant on Polara, found herself in an awkward conversation with her regular alien customers. They still came for her noodles, but now they looked at her differently. "Did you know?" they asked. "About the warships?" "No," she answered honestly. "Most of us did not know. But now that I do, I understand why they did it. I have cousins on New Terra. They are alive because someone was willing to do the hard things in secret. On Kepler 442, the saved world where humanity had revealed itself, citizens built a monument. It showed a human soldier standing between a family and darkness, their face turned away from the light. The inscription read, "To those who bear darkness so others may live in light. With gratitude from a galaxy that forgot the price of peace." Admiral Chen visited the monument during a diplomatic tour. She stood before it with mixed feelings, knowing that humanity's reputation had changed forever. They were still loved for their culture and creativity, but now they were also feared for their military might. Children across the galaxy would grow up hearing stories about the Shadow Fleet and the humans who built it in secret. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked Commander Hayes, standing beside her. "I think we did the necessary thing," Chen replied. "Right and wrong are luxuries for times of peace. We live in a galaxy that learned it was not as safe as it believed. Someone had to be ready to fight. Someone had to remember that kindness alone does not stop monsters." On Earth, a young girl asked her mother about the Shadow Fleet. "Are we the good guys?" Her mother, who had lost friends to the Dravine before humanity intervened, thought carefully about her answer. "We are the ones who make sure the good guys can survive. That is different and sometimes harder. Being good is easy when there is no threat. Being good while also being strong enough to protect others, that is the challenge humanity chose." Humanity continued to run restaurants, create art, and make friends across the galaxy. But now everyone knew about the warships waiting in the darkness, crewed by humans who had never forgotten their species' violent past. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as charming newcomers, treating them like beloved children. Then humanity's Shadow Fleet unveiled, and the galaxy learned that humans were both the warmest friends and the coldest warriors. In the depths of space, the Shadow Fleet remained on patrol, invisible once more but now known to exist. They watched the borders of Concordat space, ready to emerge if new threats appeared. The crews rotated, trained, and waited. They carried the burden of being humanity's hidden sword, the guardians who operated in darkness so others could live in light. Admiral Chen's final report to the Concordat Council summarized humanity's position in simple terms. "We hoped we would never need to show you what we built. That hope failed. But understand this, we did not build these weapons to conquer. We built them to protect. Every species in this galaxy is under our watch now, whether they like it or not. We will not let another Dravine swarm threaten peaceful worlds. That is humanity's promise." The galaxy accepted this new reality. Humanity was no longer the junior partner or the amusing newcomers. They were the wardens, the species that remembered how to fight and chose to use that knowledge in defense of others. It was not the role they had hoped for when they first met the stars, but it was the role the galaxy needed them to fill, and so humanity stood guard, smiling in the light while watching from the shadows, ready to unveil their ships of war if darkness threatened again.